So Tyndalston is an old U.S. city, and Tyndalston is a city full of corruption and crime. It's like a city on the brink in a lot of ways. There's a new drug called White Whisper that's been like sweeping through the city. You'll meet people who have been affected by it. You'll get into fights with like dealers who are pushing it, and then that also like ties into the main narrative.
Tyndalston can be a very harsh and unfair city, and this is where Samson lives and works as an enforcer in the Cob Street gang.
So the game takes place in South End, which is kind of the roughest part of the rough city of Tyndalston. And South End is where Samson grew up, but he's been away for the past few years on the mainland, getting into trouble and accruing a huge amount of debt that he now has to repay.
In Samson, there are basically three main modes of play. Missions, which are split up into narrative chapters, and jobs, and then open exploration, whether that's searching for collectibles or trying to find optional story content.
I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you spare a minute?
Or just taking in the view.
Yeah, the chapters tell a linear story. Shortly after Samson returns to Tyndalston, we have kind of an inciting incident that kicks off the adventure. So the chapters are meant to pull the player kind of like narratively through while they're trying to deal with the debt cycle.
So jobs are your primary way of making cash in the game, and back in the day, Samson used to do that for himself to earn money and also for the Cob Street gang. But nowadays that he's in debt to the wrong people, he kind of needs to do that every day to chip away at this debt and keep the wolves at bay.
God damn, that feels good.
There's a wide variety of jobs in Samson. It could be anything from picking up criminals at the scene of a crime, losing the heat and dropping them off at a safe location, or maybe someone needs the help of procuring new items. Or it could be maybe a group of young wannabes are trying to start a gang in South End without your say-so. Maybe you need to go there and tell them that's not a very wise idea. And a large amount of these jobs are repeatable. For example, every now and then in South End, some freshly harvested organs need delivery to like an underground clinic, and that can happen every now and then. Other jobs are more uniquely tailored and are more one-off, such as maybe you're after a unique named individual and need to take them out.
Yeah, jobs are your primary way for earning money in the game, and then the chapters are kind of like story delivery method. Every day, the player can choose like which one they want to do and kind of like mix and match to their choice or to whatever pressures are on them at the time. One is not more important than the other. Like we want the chapters and jobs, they kind of like run in parallel, right? And the player has to kind of decide like which is more important at any given time.
I'll have this debt paid off soon, sis.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the game with this like push and pull between narrative chapters and jobs. Also the fact that you cannot do everything in a single day. Even Samson has his limitations. On the one hand, I'm really eager to find out what happens after the last cliffhanger potentially in the narrative chapters. On the other hand, like maybe my car is broken down. I was planning to try and win a street trial later to earn a bunch of cash. So I need to balance those things and then also see like what does a good day look for me today. Once I described the game as a violent lesson in risk management, and I think that's pretty accurate. We don't want to be too punishing to players for failing a mission or a job here and there. But having said that, you wake up every day and you hopefully feel this like healthy dose of stress. So like, oh shit, I have to make a lot of cash today so I can chip away at this debt. And at the same time, the better you do at any given day, the more money you're walking around with, like actual cash in South End, and that's dangerous. If you get randomly ambushed in an alley on your way home or whatever, the most probable thing that will happen if you get knocked out is that you lose that money. There's always like that feeling of, I'm having a pretty good day. Is that good enough? Should I go home and bank that progress so they are actually safe?
Yeah, or do I want to like take the risk and try to go out and earn just like a little bit more money, chip off a little bit more of the debt?
if you ignore your debt for too long, maybe you get a friendly visit from some debt collectors who are there to remind you that you should pay more attention to the debt.
As far back as I can remember, I worked for other people. They called it opportunity. I called it debt. The city never stopped moving, and neither did what I owed. I never picked the smart job. I picked the one that brought me another day. In Tyndalston, nobody waited their turn. If you gave them space, they took your teeth. Sometimes you didn't need skill. You just needed something solid. You hear that? Yeah, that's the sound a face makes when it meets regret. Pain built up. Adrenaline took over. I didn't fight to win. I fought to finish. Cars had weight. Every hit mattered. The more work I did, the louder the city got. Miss a payment, and they reminded you. They weren't negotiators. They were punctuation. When the day ran out, so did your luck. Sleep didn't fix a thing. It just reset the clock. It was all connected. Time, debt, violence, and speed. People talk about freedom like it's a feeling. They have no idea.
Hi, I'm Christopher. I'm founder and creative director for Liquid Swords. We're here today to talk about Samson, a Tyndalston story. We announced Samson in December with great response and that we are very, very thankful for. Today we are going to not only talk about gameplay, we're also going to show you some more gameplay, focusing on melee combat and car combat.
Hi, my name's Strategiz Zerbini. I'm a programmer here at Liquid Swords. You're playing as a tough guy, as this two-fisted action hero who's not a soldier, who's not a martial arts master, who's not trained or he's skilled, he's tough, but he's making it up as he goes along. He's driven to fight out of desperation and survival. You're going to get ganged up on. They're going to try and get behind you. They're going to charge in on all sides. You got to keep moving, keep swinging, you know, maybe fight a little dirty. Fair fights are for chumps, right? You can walk into a nice clean room and totally wreck the place. The world is not just an arena in which you have a fight. The world is part of the fight. You can use everything you break. You can take broken things and make them into weapons. You can knock stuff over onto people. Debris can get in enemies' ways. Heavy stuff can fall and kill people. Like, it's crazy. We really want you to be able to use the city to really, really hurt your enemies. We spent a lot of time thinking about what is this fighting supposed to feel like, you know? And we really wanted to emphasize that you're desperate, you're tough, you're driven to fight. When you pulled out a gun, it got fast and it was almost too clean, it was too easy. You know, you'd get out of a fight, you'd pull out a gun, you'd be at distance, you'd take out your targets. We weren't getting the same kind of crazy chaos. And the more we played with it, the more we just decided to see how much fun you could have with your bare hands.
I'm really happy to see that the combat in the game has evolved into what it is today and what you have seen here in these videos. The original vision for combat in Samson was to hit like a freight train. And I'm really happy to see that we have succeeded in these areas and continue to make such progress. So combat in Samson doesn't stop with punching or kicking someone. A big part of the game is focused on vehicle combat.
My name is Alex Williams. I'm a designer here at Liquid Swords. We're making a city in the 90s, so cars we know are going to be a part of the game. We know they're going to be a form of transport in the world and traffic, so they are getting you from point A to B. However, it's also a tool for the player. Samson, his loved magnum opus car, is his weapon as well. You know, if he's tasked with getting this hit where this guy is speeding in front of him and the only thing is his car, he may have to weave through traffic and slam his car into his to push that car off the road or into a post or something to take it out. Another time it might be, you know, he's trying to help his team through a heist or a hit and he needs to get them out of that location before the enforcement arrives, so it might be a getaway vehicle. It might just be a simple delivery tool as well, like he needs to help his gang get things delivered around town on time and he's the man for that. So it's a multi-purpose tool, I think, the vehicles in this game. In car combat, it's about, like, you know, it can be cars hitting each other, and it's the relative momentum of the two cars, like how fast the car is, how much mass they have is dictating the damage that's being done. Then the damage of the car, like I don't want to feel a car just dies, you know, cars don't die, they're made up of lots of different parts. We have a part system, there's tires, wheels, the engine, these can all degrade. The player will feel how that car, you know, the consequences of how those parts are damaged.
There you have it. Melee combat and car combat in Samson, a Tyndalston Story. We have shown you clips today that are directly from the game, rough, rugged and raw. If you want to know more and discuss the game, please join us on Discord and other social channels, and we look forward to show you more of the game soon.
Hi, welcome back to another development diary for Samson at Tyndalston Story. Today we'll be looking at the city design and vehicle design. My name is Piotr Cob. I'm a concept artist at Liquid Swords, and I'll be taking you through the city. So one of the toughest challenges in designing the city as an artist was finding the balance between the gameplay and the visuals in the city, because we're at the same time trying to make a city that you subconsciously can understand as a consumer, that you've experienced on the day-to-day life, but at the same time we want to make an engaging game.
Enjoy the nap.
We had multiple strategies to achieve that, one of which was to make sure that the metrics that we were using were established early on, that we set them in stone, that we wouldn't end up changing them later down the line. So the metrics essentially are the measurements of various pieces. So the doorway has to have a specific height, a hallway has to have a specific width. If you do everything very realistic, you can have very narrow corridors, which can cause a lot of problems for either the camera which is following, or if you're supposed to have a fight there, when you shove characters, then things will start clipping into walls, everything will just start falling apart. We were heavily inspired by northeastern American cities from the 90s. So New York, Philadelphia. We had a lot of photos from the era which were amazing, which had a lot of character, which really set the tone for the project. But then also we had 3 art direction pillars that really kept on going back to, and we used to filter through all the photos and the references and to inspire and to amplify the work. And those were statement, violence, and parasiticism. Statement was all about big, bold splashes, essentially having a big mural on the wall about the city. Then we had violence, which was the representation of how the city was violent, how everything had a story, that there was a person, there was a fight, things were cracked, nothing was really pristine and new. And lastly, with parasitic is the term we had for the sort of greed and the corruption in the city, that the difference in wealth inequality, just exploring those sort of themes of injustice. So I think the most exciting thing for players to find in the game is just all the nooks and crannies that we've put in a lot of love and attention into. There's a lot of areas where maybe we don't have any specific gameplay that pulls you there, but they're interesting to explore regardless. So I'm really looking forward to when people will be able to go there.
My name is Damian Księżypolski, and I'm a vehicle artist here at Liquid Swords. So when we started the project, we had to look at cars that were pretty common in like the 90s, but we had to take a look at what cars were active 10, maybe 15 years ago. And we had to take inspirations from those kind of eras to make that fit into both the narrative and the aesthetics of the city. We can take a lot of inspirations from existing cars, but the cars in their design is mostly ours now. And we had quite a lot of liberty when it came to that. Because if we were working on real brands, we wouldn't have any type of freedom. There's a lot of challenge that comes with the freedom. Because you need to stay true to what people have seen or can relate to when they look at these cars. They can't look at a car and go like, oh, that looks weird. But we want them to look at the cars and go like, oh, I kind of recognize that. The one car that actually went through a very dramatic transformation was Samson's car. We had settled at first at a standard 4-door sedan. It felt too everyday, your average Joe who just sat in his car driving to work. And that did not fit him as a person at all. And eventually we were like, I think it's time for us to do a proper car for Samson. There was no hassle working with that car. Everything was pretty straightforward, but it worked. We got it in and it just looks so differently from all of the other cars. It has attitude. It's definitely the magnum opus.
I own these streets.
All cars deform differently, especially throughout the ages. All we knew was that we kind of wanted a little bit of mayhem, and we wanted these brutal takedowns. We wanted you to have the car as a tool. And that was a lot of work between me and our VFX guy, Oscar. He was the one that uplifted the whole thing, that made it so much more impactful. So when you smash a car, they start to tumble, they go full James Bond mode. When we got that first big roll and they flew into a pillar, that's when we knew that we got it. Thank you for watching. If you want to keep up to date or discuss what you've seen, join our Discord or follow us on social media.